Now that we have understood what a system is, let's talk about system architectures. So, an architecture, in simple terms, describes the designed structure of something. Think of it like a blueprint. It explains how the different parts are arranged and how they work together. So, when we say system architecture, we mean a description of how specific components are deliberately put together to perform certain actions. For example, in IT, the architecture of a web application might show the database at one end, the application server in the middle, and the web front end that users interact with. Similarly, in OT, the architecture of a control system might show sensors feeding data into a PLC, which then sends commands to actuators to control some physical processes. Now, depending on the audience, we can represent architectures in different ways. And there are frameworks like TOGAF and Zachman framework that provide levels of abstraction, which means we can show a high level business friendly view for executives or a very detailed technical view for engineers. Now, why understanding system architecture is important? Because only when we clearly understand and draw the architecture of an OT or ICS system that we are trying to protect, we can decide where to put enforcement boundaries. For example, where should the firewalls go? Where do we need network segmentation? Which endpoints require stronger protection? And the architecture also helps us identify which components are most vulnerable. In a web application, for instance, the database and application server usually sit inside the internal network, but the web front end is exposed to the internet. That makes it the most vulnerable part, and so we know that it needs stronger protection. The same principle applies in OT, in ICS. So if you think about a data historian, which is like a database for OT world, that sits between the IT and the OT, collecting data from industrial processes and making it available to business systems like ERP or some SAP systems on the IT side. And we know that because a data historian has some components that are going to communicate both with IT and OT, it becomes a high risk component. So, by studying the architecture of the OT and ICS system, we will find out more components like data historian that we know are going to be dual home, that are going to talk to both IT and OT, and that can become pivotal points for attackers to move from IT towards OT. And that's why then we know that these are the components that we need to secure more. So that's why understanding system architecture becomes more important in deciding the right security controls and right enforcement boundaries for the most exposed parts of the system. That's all on this slide. See you in the next one.